hates it. I've been going all day, but that's all right. We make it go. We're still going. We get snakes breeding. I'm cleaning snakes before this, and it's a productive day.
Brother, so what happened here? Believe we just shot the live button, so we actually just started on live now. So I'll go ahead and get the introduction going here one more time.
Yes, sir.
This is Jason Exotic. This would be our fourth episode. Thank you so much for joining us here today. If you did miss the intro, I do apologize. The live was a bit late or lag, so there is technical difficulties within the first episodes. Please bear with us as we do get connected, but I do appreciate the people that are connecting shortly as well. This is Jason Exotic Reptiles. Man, it's a pleasure to actually have you on, brother.
Yes, sir. No, I'm happy to be here, man. Like I was saying, we've been talking for years, so it's and I got busy. We started to have a conversation about this a while ago, so I'm happy to be on. Happy we can make it happen, and looking forward to tonight and where we go from here. Should be a good time.
Absolutely, brother. Yes, definitely, definitely. Well, before we do get started, I wanted to get into the conversation of how we actually met and how we got into connection. Jason was actually a piece of hatred from my wife. She had a certain feeling towards him because she believed that he pickpocketed his information or hid it in certain videos. But that was her perspective. I love the guy, and honestly, it was because maybe she was too annoyed of the fact that he was constantly on YouTube when I was coming home from work or constantly on my phone. But I understand where she came from. But man, that hatred piece to something that developed something further, and we purchased a snake somewhere along the line within the past year. We did get into connection after that. We spoke about some other animal issues and concerns that I had with other customers. And he was always a helping hand and continues to be a helping hand to everybody, not just myself. But yeah, man, that was our story and how we actually met. But if you have anything to add, man, we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, no, nothing. I think you covered it, and no, I hear your wife, and like I said, I feel like I'm an open book. I mean, I try to give everything that I do, and I say it often is people are like, oh, you're hiding information or you're not telling what you're actually doing. I'm like, no, this is literally what I'm doing. Like, if you just follow my videos exactly, you're going to do exactly what I do. And people think I'm lying about it. They think I'm hiding certain things, and I'm totally not. If you ask me a question, I'll give you an answer. And I tell people come at me and they say, don't you think that that's risky for the business that we're in? Like, do you want to give everybody your secrets? And I say, like, I don't care, because if they listen, fantastic. They're gonna have success. And if they don't, most of the time, people are not going to listen no matter what. So I could lay out everything I do to a T on how to breed things and be successful, and at least with breeding boas and stuff like that. And people aren't going to listen. 90% of the people are going to pick and choose the information, and they're not going to be as successful as they could have. Not to say my way is the only way, but it's the way my way works is like, it's kind of all or nothing. If you pick and choose, it's not going to work, or it won't be as successful. So, yeah, I went off on a tangent on you, but that's
no, man. It makes sense, because a lot of the conversations that you had on your YouTube were that, and the simplicity of the steps that you laid out. But like you said, a lot of people don't follow them. but it's still nice that somebody who has that level of knowledge is still able to display it, and give it to the public.
It's honestly, we're breeding snakes. It's not very difficult. It's really damn simple. What's wrong? Why people have challenges is they overthink it. They overcomplicate what we're doing.
Yeah.
They read their books and all these things. Oh, my humidity's got to be 75% on the dot. Well, it's okay if it's 60. It's okay if it's 80. They overcomplicate. They overthink. They're interacting too much. They're always in there trying to change the conditions, and screws up the whole deal. But I don't want to hijack your show here.
So, no, man, it's very interesting to have that, as well, man. To see the implementation of your business is a good connection to the audience as well. So as we do get started, brother, this is a more of a spiritual entrepreneurship type of podcast where we see your secrets, your developments, what you still utilize, or if there's anything that you like to do, religiously, not just a specific religion or a cult, but you can say something that you do religiously within your own routine, kind of like washing your teeth or putting your daughter to sleep every night and singing her a song, something specific that you do. So that would be my first question to you, brother. What are your spiritual practices or your daily routine that you implement, if you do have any spiritual practice?
Yeah, so I would say I joked about it with you before, but I'm probably, one of the least religious, spiritual people. I think there's something out there, but I don't really practice anything spiritually. I don't take away from people who do. I mean, it's just not my thing. I was raised Catholic and I studied a lot of different religions. It was actually my eighth grade theology teacher who made us study, all these different religions and different spiritual rituals that people do all over the world. And it was enlightening to me. The realization that I had is every religion, for the most part, thinks they're correct, and the other one is incorrect. And it was, for me, that was kind of the breaking point where I was like, all right, maybe let me look a little bit into religious practices, and by educating myself in them, I feel like I'm a very realist type of person. And again, I'm not taking away from anybody who is spiritual or who is religious. It's just not for me. And I don't really have any beliefs of that. But in terms of, my daily rituals, I wake up, I check my emails, I hang out with my kid for a little bit in the morning, and eat some breakfast. I try to eat some breakfast with them, let the dogs out, and go to work. I do that. I work most of the day, and I see my son a little bit during the evening when I get out of work, and then I'm usually downstairs with the snakes. I'm checking things. I try to get into every cage, and to just kind of come down, look at the room, make sure nothing smells. If I see something, if I smell something, I go start inspecting cages and start cleaning things, and that leads to another hour or so later. Then I'll hang out with my wife for a little bit. This is my current rituals. These have changed since I've had a kid over the past year. Uh, then I'll just eat some dinner with the wife and maybe watch some TV, and then go to bed and do it all over again. Weekends are a little different. I try to break things up every week, either a Saturday or a Sunday. I'll have my guys come over now, and we'll clean the cages, uh, and I try to take a day for myself, but that doesn't usually happen. And then checking emails and messages throughout the day, because they just start to pile up. I mean, I'll look at it got overwhelming at one point, which is why I started the Patreon. Is I tried to focus. If you have a real question you need to get answered, join the Patreon, and I can focus my time. If I see a Patreon message, I'm going to answer that no matter what. There are people who have kind of committed to that next step, but at one point, I mean, I was getting anywhere from 20 to 100 messages a day, and I wasn't responding to them, and I was missing customers who wanted to purchase animals. I was missing um, I was missing past customers who had questions on their animals. So I had to try to find a way to streamline that. I just didn't have enough time. It's just me. And uh, YouTube really increased the visibility in a great way because it increased sales, but I also get a lot of questions, which I don't mind answering. I just don't have time. I actually enjoy
Mhm.
answering questions. I was out of time. So that's why I started the Patreon, hoping that would funnel it. Uh, so again, even on my website, I have a questions answer or a question and answer type of way where you can submit a question, but I still encourage people to, if you just need long-term help or care, join the Patreon. Join for $3 a month, and I will answer as many questions as you want. Join for $25 a month, and you're in a community chat where we're talking, like this for an hour, and I'm literally just rattling off questions. We're building a community. Other people are answering questions, and then if people want like really one-on-one, which has actually been really fun, then that's another tier up. But I have half-hour and 1 hour calls where it's just like this, except we're talking about whatever you want. I mean, I had one guy who we would spend a whole hour. He would say, "Hey, I'm looking for this animal." We would spend a whole hour on Morph Market looking at the potential animals, what I saw valuable in certain ones, what I did not like about some that he was presenting, and just totally unbiased. I'm just here to help. So I kind of went way off on a tangent of, how my day goes, but basically my day just is always filled with stuff. So answering questions and emails is a huge part of my day, and I just pepper it in throughout. So that's where I get kind of backlog is answering the questions, the emails, and I just started a Discord, which I don't know if was a good idea or not. I don't know what a Discord is yet, but it was brought up in the Patreon, and they're like, "Yeah, we should do a Discord." I'm like, I cannot have any more things to check throughout my day. Again, I wake up, I spend probably a half hour to 45 minutes checking my Instagram messages, checking my Facebook messages, YouTube comments, um, Patreon comments, and questions, and like by the time I'm done with that, it's a half hour, 45 minutes go by. Always
Yeah.
showers in between. I don't go a whole week without showering.
Yeah, man, you do need a shower at least daily. I would say with snakes or cleaning snakes, you get a foul smell right after.
Yeah. Usually twice a day. Usually like once in the morning and once when I'm done cleaning all the snakes. Because I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, man, that's the way it should be. Man, well, you do have well, you could say a routine that you're constantly keeping up with your work. But in regards to like something spiritual, did you by any chance happen to use any tactics when you were young, like not doing certain things because they were superstitious, or certain things that defined your persona, the certain way that you walked, that you moved, that you still look back and say, oh, like I still do that, or that mannerism is still stuck with me?
When I was younger, I would say I was maybe a little superstitious, but that was kind of inherited from the people around me,
Yeah.
the environmental conditions. I don't think I really have any superstitions now. Again, I feel like I'm just a really real in the moment type of person, and I don't really. Again, I'm just kind of like this is life. I mean, I guess you could say it's spiritual in a sense. Like I heard something somewhere, but everybody said, it was something like what what the past is a memory and the future is a thought. The only thing that's real is right this second. And
Mhm.
I just love that because when it kind of puts life in perspective. And as I get older, some of the things I struggle with mentally are time. Time is the most valuable thing I have because I can't buy it. I can't get more of it. Time and health, obviously, I mean, those go hand in hand. But it's I guess in some sense you could say that that's maybe spiritual, but it's I've been trying to become more conscious of my time and use it wisely because it's something that if I'm sitting there on Instagram flipping through reels for an hour, like that's an hour of my life I can't get back. But it's with reptiles and with social media, trying to grow a business, it's an essential part of it. I'm not just flipping through reels. I'm supporting other people like yourself, and I'm just trying to see what other people are interested in. Instagram has a funny way of showing what you're actually interested in versus what they show you. I'd say 90% of the stuff I see on my feed now is like, how did this even get here? I'm not interested at all. I'd rather see your content or other people that I support and like, but they seem to bury that in all the other crap that's out there. Again, I'm way off on a tangent. I don't know how I got here, but
No, man, you're totally fine. It is the routine that you keep, and what your practice is. I mean, to me, that's more spiritual than anything, and that's what I like about uh, personalities that have seen the past or have seen the culture. And you said you grew up as a Catholic, so you did the practice. Did you by any chance become initiated, like the whole catechism stuff? And yeah, so you went through the entire thing, and you
yeah,
know what it is. Yeah. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
no, absolutely. I went to a Catholic school for 12 years. My elementary, middle school, and high school was Catholic. I think I felt like the more I learned about it, the more I didn't believe in it. The more I was like,
Mhm.
I understand why people do, and that's a whole topic for a different. I could go way down a rabbit hole in that. Get myself. I understand why people do it. My wife is religious, and my family's spiritual. My brother is religious. Catholic and Christian, and it's just not me. Not for me. I the realization that what you remember or your memories are, or the past is a memory and the future is a thought. Just something about that stuck so strongly with me.
It's almost like that quotation where it says, "Is there anything you can do about it? No. Can you change it in a previous time? No. So what can you change? Nothing. So it's like it's a constant circle just of development, and nothing is concrete. So like that's what I felt like with what you were saying, and I can feel your perspective. I went to Catholic school for 1 year at a school called Our Mother of Sorrows, but I went there because I had school problems. I was always moving from home to home with my father before he passed away, and the last school that I went to, I got into an altercation with another kid, and we got into a fight. And I was told that I was expelled from that school, and that was constantly my road. When I got to Catholic school, I knew the road of like being out on the street and what I focused on and how I navigated my life. So when I got to Catholic school, it was a shock. Like, these kids are pricks. Like, I really was pissed off at just looking at these kids, because I was like, you're really going to act this way? Are you really going to be a hypocrite and just continue to live on your life and think that everything is perfect? Like, I'm not hating on any religion whatsoever, but those are the things that I experienced in my childhood. Like, it's like they weren't mean or bullies, but they were so smart for their own good. Like they just use it to manipulate their own situation with the teachers or their parents. And it was sadistic to a point where I was like, shit, like, this religion is fucked.
With a lot of stuff, I just try not to. I don't know. I feel like my time is so valuable that I don't even overthink stuff. I don't really get mad. I rarely will get mad, and if I do, my grudge is gone in like 5 seconds. Like, I don't have enough time in my day to worry about that. I get so many important things, so many awesome things in life that I could be thinking about, that somebody who pissed me off, or somebody who's bothering me, or comment on Facebook or social media that's like negative towards me, like, I just don't even pay attention to it. I get too much important shit to worry about.
Exactly. But what I was pointing to is like your previous life, as you went through that childhood as a Catholic school, you saw those things up from hand. So you know how it is because you saw the hypocrisy. You saw it with your own eyes. Like, everybody's against each other and everybody just wants to be a part of something. Like, it's comprehensible. Like, if it makes you feel better, if it's going to keep you in your sane shoes, then by all means, go ahead and practice it. I'm not by any means putting anything down, because I do myself practice, occult, but it's more of the elements of earth. I use that more as my meditation because I see that as a part of me, or my true nature of where I come from. So it's something that really stuck with me, and I like to share it with people with you, like you, because you've seen different perspectives. And I want to ask, you said you've seen a variety of religions. Like, what were the things in theology that you studied, aside from the religious factors of Christianity, Buddhism? Like, did you see any esoteric practices?
Not really. No, it was a lot of the main religions, the ones that when you think religion come to mind. At least for me, Buddhism, Hinduism, the different types of Catholicism. Uh, and again, I think what turned me away from it. What is interesting, though, from a spiritual and religious perspective, they all have a central type of thought process. There's always like some type of a central thought, except for Buddhism. Although Buddhism kind of does. I'm no Buddhist expert. Uh, I do think energies and transformation. I think that is pretty real. Uh, I know a lot about physics, and I'm an environmental engineer by career, and physics is something that always fascinated me. Is that the balance of energy, and uh, I am a huge proponent of there's always a balance of something.
So you are familiar with the double split theory, right?
Maybe, I don't know, probably.
So it was a theory. It was the theory of like the dead cat, like the perception of actually looking at the cat and thinking that the cat is dead inside of the box. And the guy said that unless you give it the visual effect, meaning that until your eye or the optic eye sees the cat dead in the box, regardless if you think that it's not there or not, if there is a cat in the box, the conception of it being reality is still 50-50 because you don't know until your eye sees it. And how they figured it out is because they laid a square sheet of metal against a light beam, and they microed, or they somehow reduced the light beam that was being shot through the plate of metal, and they figured that when they were looking at it, where there was a perception that the lights were interact in a certain pattern, like they would be straight or they would be flat. But when they figured that there would be nobody looking at it or it wasn't being recorded, the lights interacted in a different way, where there was endless possibilities. The lights were just flashing everywhere. And that wasn't measured by a recording. It was measured by the frequency of light, how fast it traveled through the splits. And they figured that when your eye is looking at something, because of reality or how you perceive it in your mind, that thing that you perceive becomes a reality. And that's what the double split theory is in physics.
So I was not aware of that, but I mean, I'm aware of the concepts of that. And yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting when you look at things at that level. Removing religion. Again, the thing I didn't like about religion is they're all somewhat different, and they're all basically, if you don't believe in this religion 1,000%, you're against us. You're either for us or against us. I mean, it's that concept to me destroys the beauty of what a religion could be. I think there's a lot of great principles and things that could come out of religion. It's when you get that kind of extreme perspective, and when you look at religion at its core, at least most of them, it is kind of an all or nothing. You can't really pick and choose. It's you're either this or you're not, and you either believe in everything about it or you don't. And I think a lot of modern day people kind of try to pull in, well, I believe in these 5 things, but I don't believe in these other 5 things. And well, then you can't really say that by the definition of this religion that you're this religion. You're maybe you share those beliefs, but to really be a good Catholic, for instance, you need to believe in some fundamental principles. So I would say that maybe you have Catholic beliefs, but are you Catholic? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's for somebody else to decide. I'm just not versed well enough in that to really speak on it. But that's my interpretation: is religion is all or nothing. You can't pick or choose. You can pick or choose beliefs from all of them. I could say, there's this Muslim belief and this Hindu belief and there's this Christian belief, and I like all of them. But does that make me all 3? I don't know. I just think that could say I'm a religious person, but to call myself Christian or whatever doesn't make sense. But in the big picture, I think there's something out there. What is it? Is it a God? No. I think it's more of like a life form, and like the movie Avatar. It's a perfect. I haven't seen the new one, but the original Avatar, I'm like, this. I could get in with this. Like there's a balance of everything. When something dies, something grows. So I believe in that type of stuff, but not necessarily a religion or a spiritual way. There's just a balance of everything. A tree dies, it grows through life.
Definitely. It's a circle of life, the way I see it. Simba. It's always like the Lion King. But
as cliche as it is, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a circle of life.
And that's exactly what I would like to touch base with you, brother, just to give you a little small perspective. I'm not instilling anything into you, just so you can see a different version of what I see in religion through my eyes. So what I practice is Santeria, and what you were saying is there is a circle of life, or the representation of what happened previously through that karmic effect that you had. So what they believe is, or what we believe is that there is a constant repercussion for what you do, not meaning that if you do good, you're going to get good back. Sometimes the doors that have to be closed are the bad ones so that the good ones can be opened. So in that being said, that bad things can necessarily be good in the long run, because there has to be a balance in the universe, as what they believe. So what happens is that they follow this almost like a practice with food and matanza. So what we practice is about 90% of vegetables and flowers and fruits and different types of roses and like beautiful bonnets that are reserved for the deities, are given at rivers or specific locations like the mountains or in front of the ocean. And what they believe is that when that offering is given with that energy, because they clean you with everything that is being offered to the deity as a representation of earth, once you release it onto the spot, meaning if you leave it in the mountain or if you leave it up in the ocean, what they believe is that an animal is going to somehow get to that piece of food or digest it, or somehow it's going to affect or have a ripple effect. And a good explanation of it is if, like, let's say I leave an offering at a bank or a bottom river, and there's a turtle that comes by and starts eating on the pineapple. And as the turtle leaves, he stumbles upon a deer. The deer happens to get a bit startled, and he runs a different path. So he ends up in a road. In the road, there happens to be a car previously with two kids and a family. Because the deer was passing by the actual bridge, the family couldn't get to an accident that was meant to happen for them. But because the deer happened to, stumble upon the car, that is what happened. So what I'm getting to is that there's a karmic residue within everything that you do within Santeria. So when you leave it, like let's say you leave that offering, it's going to affect everything around you, not just yourself, but it will affect everything around what you live in and what you believe in and how you carry yourself with your spirituality. I think that it's more like a blessing. I don't practice the whole spectrum of what they believe. I'm a spiritualist. As a child, I was considered what is seen I can't say medium, but I would have visions or premonitions of events, and I had psychologists see me, and I would have situations where I almost like told the future, but in a sense it had a connection with what I'm practicing. And that's kind of with what you were saying, brother. It's like the circle of life, in my perspective.
No, I can totally dig it. I mean, it's just from the fundamental of like every action has equal and opposite reaction, and that, yeah, I mean, karma in a sense, karma is something that I would say is probably, I would believe in the most as the word of karma, where if you do, but in all instances, like just because there's good and bad, and if you leave a pineapple in the riverbank, that's going to feed something and it could cause another reaction. You throw a cigarette butt into a pool of toads. I mean, I don't think of karma in that sense, but there's a reaction from that. So I do think that there's consequences to every action, whether that be a good or a bad consequence. It's going to spark something as a result of it. Now, it sounds like what you practice is a little more spiritual in the sense where there's some beliefs of a ritual involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just the action of everything will have a ripple effect. Everything we do will have a ripple effect. This podcast will have a ripple effect, or this live stream will have a ripple effect of something. What that is, I don't know. That's not for me to decide, but something will happen as a result of this. So I can totally get on board with that. And I guess in that sense, if that is spiritual, then yes, I am spiritual in that sense of everything will have an effect. I just I try to be nice to people. I try to be nice about people, and just from a mood perspective. And again, I'm going a little off topic, but I feel like it's in the same sense as if you treat people with respect, you may not get respect back all the time, but over time it pays off, as long as it's treating people with respect when you're selflessly doing it. Giving somebody a compliment, not hoping they're going to give you something back. Giving somebody who needs money, not hoping they're going to give you something back, just because you should. It's it's the right thing to do because they need it and you don't. Give somebody food because they need to eat. Give an animal food because it needs to eat. There's a ripple effect to that. As
Absolutely.
long as it's selflessly, can't be doing it with a, hey, I just gave this person who needed money $100 today. Well, like, that's not selfless. That's for your own selfish desires. It's because you said you wanted to do that.
It's egoistic at that point, and that's something funny that you touch based on, because I have that conversation with my spouse a lot of times where I'm like, please don't tell what you saw, like just keep it silent, because like it's if you say, it's more like it's not that that I grow my ego, but to myself, I'd rather keep my blessings that I give other people silent. You know, like it's not something that I like to publicize or talk about, because I feel like you're saying, man, I love to live in the moment now. I'm not saying that I always did or think this way, or maybe I still don't. You know, everything changes constantly. So it's a constant reevaluation, like you're saying, man, and that's awesome that you take that perspective as well, bro. Like you're saying, you have a very compact schedule. So how do you combine your work balance with your spiritual practices or your business? Meaning, so now that you laid everything out, it might be like a two-part question. Um, Being that you have certain things that you do in the day, you wake up, you check your emails. Is there anything in between that you say that you do? Maybe talk to your wife or consult with yourself, or have like 30 seconds to yourself where you just like concise and like have a break, or do you use maybe that time for YouTube, or what is it that you do?
I cry in between.
It's something that I do as well, brother, and it started probably when I started watching your videos.
No, I think we all have vices. In one sense, checking my YouTube and my messages is my break from the day. Uh, Most of my day is, you can say work, but I really feel the reptiles as a hobby, and interacting with people on Instagram and Facebook, and responding to YouTube comments. Sometimes it becomes a chore and it is work, but a lot of the times that is my vice. That is what I do to get away from work. So I may be working, I don't know, 7:30 to 6:30, but over the course of that day, I may check my phone a couple times. Um, I try to find that balance because it can get distracting. So I'm just, I try to actually just put it in another room. So there'll be times when I don't see my messages, and people will get mad at me. Uh, they'll send me a whole bunch of messages with question marks, and it's like, dude, I haven't seen it yet. And if I do, I might have my phone, but I'm answering 15 other messages before I even see your message. Um, so today was a good example. I just needed to be productive. I didn't even have my phone on me. I was painting an apartment, and I put it in the kitchen drawer. And I actually, when I left the house, I'm like, where did I put my phone? I had to go looking for it. But throughout the day, I picked it up and checked on it to make sure there's nothing major. My wife's fine. There's no crazy text messages. The sky isn't falling. My house didn't, nothing happened to it. But I would say checking social media, as much as I hate social media, that maybe is my vice right now. I'm at work. I'm fortunate that I do work from home most of the time. I used to travel a lot with what I do, and I used to work in an office, but COVID changed that. And even before COVID, I started working remotely. But I'll go see my son. I'll spend 5 minutes with him. I'll feed him some blueberries or something while he's eating in the kitchen, and I'll go back to work. And that will be my vice for the day. My life's changed a lot. My son is almost a year old, and since he came, my life has changed significantly. It really has put a lot of things in perspective, having a son, and or just a kid in general. Um, but that's what I think changed my perspective on time a little bit more, and time management. And I try to be as productive as possible with the time that I have, because I find myself, in the morning, I do try to spend some time with him, and then there would be days where I don't see him at all, and he'll be in bed before I see him again. There'll be days that I wake up before he's up, and I am away until he goes to bed. So it'll be whole days where I don't see him at all, or I'll be traveling for work. So I try to spend as much time with him and my wife as possible when I have it, without derailing my progress on work or what I'm doing, all within the realm of what I need to. So again, I do try to take like a Saturday or a Sunday that I try to tune out of the social media, and I try to tune off of things like that. I will still check throughout the day. I try to turn work off in my mind, and I just try to focus on them the best I can.
Yeah, man. Well, if that's your vice, like you're saying, something that you use for yourself or for your own time, then it's a good thing to do. Kids do need a lot of time. I have two girls of myself, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So my eldest is going to school, and my youngest is about to start kindergarten next year. So she has a bit of an attachment to mom. We both work from home, and and as well, it's a bit of a conversation during the day. Let's keep that voice down. We're on the phones or we're talking, or it's like it's going to be good for her because she needs that time to develop her social life and being at a school. My daughter thankfully didn't start school until after the whole COVID thing happened. But some of the kids that did start kindergarten during the COVID era, they had to be home with their tablet and doing school from home. But I think that social interaction is very, very needed.
Yeah. In vices, I mean, I guess the snakes, like there'll be times where I got to go clean snakes. And to me, that is as much of a chore as it is. It's kind of like a mental break for myself too, is I'll just come down, clean snakes. Now that I have a couple guys that work here, having them over is, I enjoy them. I enjoy, the goal was they would do it so I could free up time to do other stuff. But I kind of enjoy working down here with them. I think it's having the conversations with those guys, and uh, I don't really get out to spend a lot of time unless it's literally with work or with my family. So in terms of friends, I've moved to the middle of Connecticut, so I don't really have any friends around. Uh, but I enjoy seeing them. I'm always so busy. Uh, there's always something in my day that is kind of prevents me from going back to Boston or going to New York or seeing family and friends in that sense. So I enjoy when they come here, and but otherwise my typical vice really is social media, responding to questions, comments, and answering people. I really do enjoy it when it doesn't become overwhelming, and then interacting with the animals, whether that's just cleaning them or giving them water or holding them just for a couple minutes a piece, just checking them out, looking at how they react and interact with them. I think that's something special. Why I keep reptiles in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is almost like a therapy, man. And that's something that I use as a vice as well. It's like it really does help to lean off the day and settle your mind and just the interaction overall. I think it's a blessing to have.
Yeah, and it's evolved in some sense. I used to keep things as strictly as pets, and I still like to think everything here is my pet, but there's also a business perspective to it, which is something that I can't forget either. And every cage, every square foot costs something, and there is a business component to it. So it needs to have that balance. Uh, I'm at the level where I don't need to breed everything. I breed animals when they're ready. I don't force things, and I've said it a few times on my videos and in other forums, but there was at one point when I made reptiles my business, or I was trying to make it my business, and an animal died when it ovulated, and my first thought in my head was, "Damn, I can't get the babies from that. I really needed them to make money." And that was when I just made a hard line of, I will not make reptiles my business, because I should have thought, "Damn, that animal that I really cared for died." That should have been my first thought and not the afterthought. And the first thought was, I needed that money from those babies. I really needed those babies. And that, when I heard myself literally, I repeated that in my head, and I instantly said, something's wrong here. That goes away from why I started this, what keeps me passionate about this. So I decided to never officially make it my business unless I was at such a large scale that I could still maintain that uh, and I could still maintain that same mindset of, these are my pets, and I have some breeders, and whatever breeds, and whatever doesn't. And either way, I have so many animals, I'm going to be fine. But that's also a lot of work too. And uh, I mean, I would probably need to make 4 or 5 times the amount of room that I have now, 4 or 5 times the amount of animals. It's just not something I want to get involved in.
And the mind is very powerful, man. Like you were saying, like just because you were thinking, this is going to make me money, but that involves pressure, and the mind is very strong. Like in my perspective, it's like when you say something, that there's always going to be a contradiction because the mind always goes against itself. So the moment that you said, "Okay, I'm going to breed because I need to make this money," because you put that into the universe, you're kind of like cutting your own throat. Saying like this is only for the materialistic output. And the way I see it, it's like nature's always watching.
Yeah. No, but there's a lot of people out there that do that. Is
Yeah.
literally, they only breed for the profit, and I think it's a terrible. way to do it. I can't knock them, but there's people that come into this with 1,000% business mindset. They've never had a snake. Their only desire is to make money off of them, and I can't knock it. It's necessary, but I don't know how. And they actually, a lot of them do. Three of them do very well with that, but it's just not something that, not a person I would buy from. And I won't drop names. I'm not going to drop names, but it's just not the person I would buy from. It's not my deal. I like people who are passionate about it first and then grow it into a business. But there's a lot of people try to come in with that mindset. Ball pythons are a great example. I'm not knocking ball pythons, but ball pythons were one of those things where people said, "Hey, I like snakes. I can make this a business." They didn't realize that it is a business. Like it's not like, oh, I like snakes and I'm just going to put some snakes together and make money. Like, no, you have to treat it like a business. You have to advertise. You have to contribute. You have to treat it like a business, like any other business. I could go
And
buy
it's
a bunch of coffee. I think I was saying, buy a whole bunch of coffee machines, but that doesn't mean I'm a barista. I don't know how to work them. I have to put effort into that. And a lot of people think like, just going to buy some snakes. I'm going to put some cleaning effort, but that's it. But no, you got to be able to sell things, and that's
yeah,
a
definitely.
business.
And it's crazy, man, that you say ball pythons, because I don't keep ball pythons, but that's sadly what I sell the most. And I'm always buying, from other breeders, and I resell here in town. So it goes good with ball pythons, but I don't like them to keep them, man. I've thought about it, and I'm really on my head for pines and to actually start some projects. I might start some projects with people here in town here within the next month, but maybe Lucy's or Pieds, but to keep myself, I don't think so, man. I love that adrenaline rush. I'm an adrenaline junkie for sure.
No, I like ball pythons. It's I was just in it for the wrong reason. I used to have a lot of ball pythons, hundreds of them. I was again just in it for the totally wrong reasons. If I were to get another ball python, it would probably be just an albino ball python, because to me that was, at the time that I was getting introduced to ball pythons, that was like the holy grail of ball pythons, or that was like the holy grail of snakes, like an albino ball python. What? Like, to see an albino ball python was ridiculous. So I always remember that, and that would probably be the only snake that I would have as a ball python again, is get the albino, because of mentally what it brings back for me. The memory of, it was a video of, I think it was National Geographic, and like Dave and Tracy Barker were breeding an albino ball python, and it was, I don't know, 2001 when it came up, and I already had ball pythons, but I'm like, that's an awesome ball python. And that was before we had all these combos. It was like single genes. Nobody knew what two combos would do. Nobody even thought about making two combos. It was just like, let's just make more albinos. There was nothing else to breed it with. I mean, there was other stuff, ghosts and things like that, but it wasn't really a market. So that was right at the cusp of it becoming a market.
Yeah, man. But at least you heard yourself to the point where like, hey, I'm getting greedy. Like I should like reel it back and actually focus on what I really wanted. Like you said, man, it was really just the love of the animal. And to me, I've always been a fond of all types of animals, but like reptiles really hit something at a certain part of my life where it was like, shit, like there's a change here. Like I've learned so much from them just by interacting with them. Like they're teaching me so many lessons within my life. And this is my dream, man. I haven't really shared it with anybody other than a couple people here and there. But I was in a program called Youth Build, and this program was for kids who were dropouts from high school, who were homeless, or who were parents. And for 1 week, I would build houses for low-income families out in about a hour away from my town. And for the other week, I would work for my high school diploma. And during that period, my wife was pregnant as well, and we were both going to this program. My wife was with the belly, shooting hammers and learning how to frame. And that was a program that really helped me through the depths of my darkest time in my life, where, I mean, I'm still young. I'm 25, 26 this month. But I felt like that was it was a helpful program. And unfortunately, it dissolved here in Tucson, Arizona. It's no longer, open. But my thought is if we can incorporate a museum or some type of sanctuary, and the name would be Camp Green Lake, as from the movie Holes, the kids who were troubled, kids who were, always into trouble, went to this place called Camp Green Lake. and I would want to incorporate the reptiles, make them clean the shit, make them feel the pain or the actual struggle of wanting to breed, so that they can focus in their real life. And that's my giving to not just me, but kids, because that's where the foundation starts. I think high school is very important, and those 4 years define who you are as a person. I went through a lot of bullshit. My dad died when I was 16. I was homeless for about a week. I was attempting suicide and doing a lot of things, but that was what changed my passion. The animals, and that's what I think. If I can give that to other kids who are in the same shoes that I was, that would be my greatest purpose in life.
Yeah, no, well, I appreciate you sharing. I mean, I think it's awesome. I think a lot of people have a similar story. To be honest, I really feel strongly that that is where a lot of people start. A lot of people who are really passionate about reptiles started, was there was just something about them that they connected with it, and it gave them some kind of feeling that helped them through something, and it was just that moment that it stuck. And some people just think they're cool. Some people just do it because they think other people will think they're cool. But a lot of people at the same time have that similar type of experience that you had, I think, at least. And again, whatever happened in their life, they interacted with this animal at this point, and it helped them through something, and they just became more passionate about it, or at least got to enjoy that animal for what it was, and they remember that experience, and they take a liking to it. So I think that's awesome.
Definitely, man. I appreciate that, man. Everybody has their story, and the people that you meet, show you their stories, and along the road, it's kind of like it's a reflective vision of you, like you're looking in the mirror to some point, and there's a lot to assimilate from people. Almost like that reciprocation of energy, like you're saying. If you don't feel a certain connection with person, then why continue the conversation? I get to the point where I'm not offensive to people, but I'd be like, this is it. Like, I'm sorry, but I gotta go. Like, it's busy. Like, I have to do something else because I don't like to entertain that energy. It's like it's sadistic to me, and it's not productive at all.
No, and I mean, to that earlier point, I think that there's just so much cool, good people in reptiles, and I mean, if you go back, reptiles have become more mainstream, and they continue to become more mainstream. But you go back to like the early '90s, or or even early 2000s, you were like the weird person if you had reptiles. Like, you were the weird dude. A lot of people didn't know I had reptiles unless they were like a family or close friends. Like, I didn't tell people I had reptiles. I had social media. I never posted pictures of them because like you were not cool if you had reptiles. There was no community of people. There was, but it wasn't like it is today with social media. It's being so prevalent with Facebook groups. Facebook used to be for college people only. Uh, all right, you're the kid in college with Mitch feeding the mouse, like you're the weird dude. So like you don't tell people you have the reptiles. And there was always kind of like, then you'd go to these reptile shows where you're around a whole bunch of other weird people that shared that similar interest, and they all, I think, people who interacted and had similar experiences like yourself, where you maybe interacted with an animal and you felt a connection, whether it was in the wild or in a nature center or wherever it could be for different people. I think that that was where all the people got together and were like, hey, you're like me, like you like these things too. Um, in some sense, just something, whatever was special about that animal, you found that common interest. Uh, but at the time, again, they were like a lot of weird people. I mean, there still are a lot of weird people by the sense of weird. Like, what is weird and what is normal? Like, who cares at that point? But again, it was a kind of a unique thing where that was the only way people really got into reptiles, is if they had that type of experience, similar experience to what you had, or similar experience to what you're explaining about the youth center with other kids. Like, that was their vice. They found a community through it, and they were able to kind of grow in that community. But it wasn't really publicized. Now it's a little bit more public and again more mainstream, um, which is good and bad. I feel like a lot of people get into it for the wrong reasons. People get a snake because they think it's going to make them look cool. I People got into large constrictors. I think it's the worst thing that happened to the large constrictor game, is people got large constrictors because they liked how they felt with that large constrictor, the reactions they got from other people. And I think that that's totally cool until you got like 35 or 100 reticulated pythons, and you're like, what do I do with all these things? So it's a whole I'm snowballing again, but I think reticulated pythons are amazing. I don't have them myself. I used to have them, but I don't know how people have 100 of them. It's a lot of damn big snakes. It's easy when they're small, but it's hard when they're older. And why I got a reticulated python was I thought they were just awesome animals, but I didn't get a reticulated python or a Burmese python for the longest time because I was afraid with how big they got. And at the time, I mean, a 13-foot snake is massive when I was, like a 10-year-old kid. I remember going to a pet store with my father, and he's like, "Oh, let's get that albino one. It's $325." And and it was an albino Burmese python. And I'm like, "No, Dad, I can't get that. It's going to get too big. Mom's going to kill me." Like, "Oh, let's just get it. It'll be cool." I'm like, "No, no." But even at that age, I was knowledgeable and I was responsible enough to say, like, "No, that's not for me." Knowing what I know now, would I have got that Burmese python? Yes, I would have. But at the time, I was reading the books, and I've never seen a 13-foot snake or a 14-foot snake. You read in the books, they're going to get 25 feet long, and they're the third largest constrictor in the world. And in the wall, they have one painted, and it's like the whole damn length of the wall. Mine are not that big. I have seen some that are huge like that, but uh, it was again, it was. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but it was just like kind of the level of knowledge that reptiles and the level of interest that reptiles brought to me through just the interaction and the camaraderie of the people you're around, and the kind of interaction I got with my family and my parents and my brother and things like that. That's what I think continued to draw me towards reptiles even more. It just kind of was something that was you can't describe. It's just there, and some
It
people
is.
have that, some people don't. I guess is where I was going with it.
Yeah, and it's easy to tell. I mean, not that we're being stereotypical, but it's a given eye. Like when you see a person walk into your shop, or you're talking to somebody on the phone, and they ask you like, "Do you have any snakes?" And you're like, "What species?" And they're like, "What do you mean, what species?" And I'm like, "Okay." Like it's questions like that raise the alert. Like like, are you doing it because you want a cool snake? You're just giving me a color, or you're giving me what species. And what I do personally, and I don't care if I lose a customer, but I give you a forum of 16 or 10 to 16 websites, and this is including, the enclosures you need, the species, the husbandry, temperatures, everything enlisted in the email. And then I send you pictures of the snake after you figured out what species. I tell you, hey, if you want it, man, like do your own research. And I'm not being an asshole, but I'm going to send you all of this info. If you read it, then you let me know if you're ready for it. And sometimes, 50-50, they'll just not message me back and call somebody else or meet up with somebody else and buy a different snake. I'm totally fine with that. Like I'm not trying to preach, or anything, but that's the way I do it. And regardless if you don't like it, man, like I feel like good keepers are always on top of that knowledge. Like when I met my breeder here in town, Dan, with boas, he was very knowledgeable, and he brought me into his room, into his own home, and showed me his racks. He showed me his enclosures, his snakes, and that's what built that connection. I think it was more of the, like you said, that camaraderie between like keeper to keeper, where he even gave me a list of groups of Facebook. He's like, "Bro, like if you're gonna get into it, you want to tap into these Facebook links. You want to start posting your snakes there, and that's going to give you more projection for your snakes if you do end up wanting to breed." And he was always like keeping with me, and he sells as well rats to me. And right now, I think he is getting out of the rat game, but he was steadily selling to me for months. And that was that connection that I felt like it was a bonding connection, and that's what I want to perceive or show the people that I'm bringing into this hobby, because essentially it is a hobby, regardless of what your perspective is of a hobby. It's still a passion because you do it on a daily. It's still something that you do habitually. So it's like, for people, it's like advice, like you said, it's something that they look forward to, and that's what I found home with that, man.
I think reptiles are an excellent hobby if people actually enjoy them. It, any type of animal can be an excellent hobby as long as you're in it for the right reasons. people, I feel like it's easier to buy a reptile than a dog. For some reason, people look at a dog and they say that's a lot of commitment, but they don't think the same about a reptile, which is unfortunate. Uh, but to your point, I mean, it's you need to educate yourself, and the forums are different now. It's for me, in some sense, it's hard to relate to a newer keeper because there's so much information. The information is different. You know, I didn't have there was internet, but I didn't have internet when I was getting into reptiles. There was really no forums. There were no Facebook groups. It was here's a book, read it. And I'm like, all right. Like you'd look at like 3 pictures over and over again. And that was again the albino ball python. It was like that's an awesome picture. I looked at that picture every night for like 6 months before I was able to buy a snake. Um, and corn snakes. I'm like, I don't even know what these things look like, but I see pictures of them and they're really cool. And I've read this book like 6 times because it's the only book out there, and there's nothing else to read. And it's just a different type of. They weren't as available. You couldn't order them and have them be there next day. Pet stores really didn't have reptiles. Had to go out of your way to find a pet store that had reptiles. So it was a little different. And in some sense, I'd like to think I'm still in the knowledge of what actually keepers are getting into today because I'm in it with them. But it is, in some sense, like an information overload. There's so much information out there that where the hell do you start? What's right or wrong? You go in a Facebook group and there's people bashing each other for questions. And yeah, it could be a dumb question, but that could be how somebody researches. They just ask a question. They get a whole bunch of answers. And I don't, the problem is there's a lot of differing answers. So where do you pick? You just pick the one you like. And it's a hard kind of concept to get into. So in some sense, like it's amazing because there's so much information, but in the other sense, it's overwhelming for keepers to know where to start, I think, and where to get good information. They really have to be able to do the research.
Yep. Yeah, man. I like going back to you, brother, like watching every single video that you put out, like it was time consuming, but I when I do something, I feel like I do it to 100% and I get obsessive over it. And then I feel like if I'm going to continue with it, I'm going to put my time and effort for the future. So I always look at things, for the future. And that was something that I saw, like there was that connection between reptiles and my time, because I'm the type of person, or was the type of person, that my schedule was very compact, fast schedule, coming home, doing long drives. Honestly, I mean, I was, in the wrong roads, brother. I was an insurance agent, and on the way back from Vegas, I was, selling marijuana, bringing back and forth from different state lines, and doing that side hustle. And it was a fun ride, but it seemed to hold me back more than it was helping me. And when I was booked into Mojave County, they taught me a lot of things there where I grew.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but the good thing is you got plenty of time. You said you're 25, so I feel like I didn't really start getting my stuff together until I was about 25. 24, 25 is when I really started to get my stuff together. Prior to that, I was just like one bad move away from just a totally different life. But at some point, everything that I did taught me a lot of really good lessons, and I can't regret anything that ever happened because it put me to where I am today, which is awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Everything for you, everything that happens to you is for a reason. If you get it from the hand where it's happening for you because it's going to make you a better person, then you have a different perspective in life, and nothing to you faces you. And it's like it's a great development at that point, I think.
Yeah, and I try not to blame anybody for anything. I mean, everything that happens to me is my.
It's for you. It's for you.
Yes, whether it's good or bad. Now, there's certainly people that have helped along the way, but even then, like you said, it's still a balance. I mean, people are helping along the way, but still, you need to. I feel like I've made a lot of hard decisions and a lot of moves I needed to do that were just mine, and those are the big critical ones that kept the thing moving and put me in a good spot.
Yeah, man. As long as you dedicate your life to something and you don't give up on it, I feel like it works out. And I'm young. I might be stupid and naive. I might be preaching to the wrong crowd right now.
I'm just a big advocate. Just work harder. Like literally, just work harder. If you work harder, it'll pay off. But you have to be consistent. Like I always tell people, 5-year plan. Like I don't want to know what you're doing tomorrow. I don't care about next year. Like, it's a 5 year plan because tomorrow is gone. Like, tomorrow's already done. You can't change tomorrow. You can change some things, but tomorrow is not going to change your future unless you get extremely lucky in some crazy sense. But tomorrow starts the process for what's going to happen next year, which will start the process for what will happen in 5 years. And I think reptiles are very similar to that. If I buy an animal tomorrow, an animal doesn't make me any money. It doesn't contribute to my business in any way unless I post a picture on social media and all of a sudden all of my Instagrams and everything blow up to be a billion subscribers, which would be luck. But that animal is the 5 year plan, is that in 5 years, this is the future of what I'm doing. Uh, that happens in all aspects of life. If everything you're doing, if you want to buy a house, you can't buy it tomorrow if you have no money. Like, set a goal. In 1 year, I'm going to have whatever, $10,000. In 2 years, I'm going to have the house. In 3 years, I'm going to sell the house. I don't know. Make your goals and stick to them. They got to be attainable in some sense. But tomorrow's gone. 5 years is the plan. 5 years is your target. Year by year, you get closer to that target in anything you do in life.
And that's definitely something spiritual, and you're more spiritual than you think, man.
Well, look at us go.
So the thing, man, is your morning routine is very admirable because you still make time for family. And to myself, I found myself as a young kid, having kids. So a kid was having kids in my perspective. And my daughter, my first daughter went through a lot of struggle. We were going from home to home, and we were just facing a rough time, and it was just our road. But my way of thinking has changed because of how I've met people, or how I focus on my own life, or how I want to guide my own life with my daughters. I might have been strict. I might have been maybe very lenient at a sense because I was a kid where I had different emotions than what an adult should have. It's like sometimes you have to lay that fork, and that's something that I struggled with, where I might have been more strict, I might have not. But now that, and I was told this the other day on a podcast, and I think that I might be able to use it, as an excuse. Until you're 25, you're pretty much just mush. You're just like undeveloped brains that doesn't have any type of sense of development to actually grasp onto things. And maybe even older for men, because some women tend to be more smarter than us. Man, so what do you consider that point where your previous line became your previous career became your career, or your current path? So what was the point of breeding / keeping your business that was the switching point? What was the catalyst where it was like, shit, this is real. Like, this is getting realer by the second.
I think when I really started to track things. So I was always, 2016 was when I actually started Jason's Exotic Reptiles, but I've been breeding reptiles way before then. Like I said, people didn't even know I had reptiles. I would just sell things online and Fauna Classified and Kingsnake.com, and just through word of mouth and Craigslist and stuff. I used to put ads in the Want Ad, which it doesn't even exist anymore. It was like a paper where it was almost like the newspaper. Like, you'd advertise in the newspaper that you had snakes for sale in a similar way. But I think 2016 was when I actually started Jason's Exotic Reptiles, and I still have my engineering career, and I do the property, and I've always had other side things that I've done. But really, it was that I was paying taxes, and I'm saying, well, like, now I'm making a profit, and the government wants their cut. So that was when I started it. And when I actually started tracking my expenses, which I did prior to that, I think probably 2010, 2011 or so, I started spending a lot of money on reptiles, investing into them in a different way that I didn't before. I was before then too, but 2000, I guess even earlier, early 2000s, 2005, I was still spending a lot of money, but I wasn't really paying taxes, and I wasn't tracking expenses. And the more I tracked my expenses, I guess 2016 is when it became profitable. And it became the realization that I need to do a better job at tracking everything behind the scenes. So there's a lot of expenses that when you actually write them down and treat it like a business, that was where it switched from a hobby to a career or to a business in a sense, where I started actually figuring out how much am I actually spending on this stuff. Oh yeah, I have to pay an electric bill. How much is my electric bill and how much does that contribute? I just drove to a reptile show. I used $200 in gas. I paid $100 for tables. My displays cost money. Well, at the time I was borrowing them from Nerd. Uh, but there was like all these expenses that I wasn't tracking, and that was when I started to really turn it into a business to figure out, am I even making any money, and how can I reap tax benefits from this? Because yeah, now I am making money, but I really need to track all the stuff I'm spending because I need to pay taxes on income, but I don't need to necessarily pay taxes as long as I have enough loss. And I'm spending a lot of money into this as a hobby. Am I actually making any money out of this? Like when I actually started tracking, I'm like, shit, I'm not making any money. At the end of the year, I thought I made $30,000, $40,000, but I ended up spending 50,000 on new animals and racks and stuff. And that was where it was still a hobby. And, I think everybody's concept of a lot of money is different. Everybody's concept of what they need to live the lifestyle they want is different. I probably spend more money than I should, but I'm also living a lifestyle that I like. Um, but in that sense, you can make a lot of money in reptiles, and that was the more I tracked that, the more I understood how to make this business profitable while still keeping it with that hobby mindset. Uh, and that's I guess 2016, that time frame when I started tracking things. That's when it turned from a hobby to a business because I realized different ways of becoming profitable doing exactly the same stuff I was doing, but I just needed to track things and switch things and tweak things a little bit. So I don't know if that answered the question. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But
Well, man, I mean, as long as you kept that record, what I was trying to ask was like exactly a time frame or a time, like what year do you think was the breaking point? 2016?
I think 2016. I mean, before then, I know I was making money. I just wasn't tracking it. But 2016 is when I actually started really tracking everything, like everything. And before it was just like, all right, I spend X amount on feeders. I'd track a couple big things. I'd track my feeders, how much I spent on animals per year, and how much I made. And those were my expenses. But there's way more to expenses. There's paper towels, there's cleaners, there's substrate, there's all this other stuff that I didn't account for. Um, but but again, I was always buying animals. I mean, if I look around, I probably have $500,000 to $1 million worth of animals here. Based on if I sold them all tomorrow, if I could sell them all tomorrow, I mean, there's probably $1 million worth of animals around me. I'd like, well, maybe I should sell them. You want to buy my animals tomorrow? I'll give you.
Yeah, man. I'm not sure about that, brother. I don't have that type of money yet.
Yeah, well, if there's any of your subscribers want to buy some animals, let them know. I got you guys.
I'll put all of his info in the links down below on YouTube, and as well as I'll share all of his info to you. But he has the most amazing Burmese. And when I fell in love with snakes, brother, it was boas, and that's why I started watching your channel. But then I started looking at Burms, and like for the longest time, I didn't get a Burmese because I was like, no, these are huge animals. I need to have the space for them. And then I did my research, and I was like, shit, like these animals are sick. And then I started working with the babies and selling them myself before I even had one for myself, where I was just selling to customers. And I worked with them maybe for a couple months, touching them and handling them so they could get tamed out. Because I love that process where they're feisty, and that I can show that I can bring them down to that level. That's what I love. And it's not because of my ego, but I just love that rush, that feeling of like, bite the hell out of me. I don't care. I'm still here.
No, I can respect that. I mean, Burmese pythons, I'd have a lot more if I had more space for them. I just don't. I'm limited on space now. So now's a different turning point for where I am, is I really need to start thinking of what I'm holding back, what I'm keeping. I thought about for the first time in a long time, do I start to sell some of my breeders, which I am pretty much against. I mean, I have some animals here that are probably like 30 years old. They were adults when I bought them, 10-year-old, 15-year-old adults when I got them. They're still here like 15, 20 years later. Like there's some old ass animals here. So like, how can I just sell this animal because it's not relevant? And that was another challenge that I'm at right now is I have animals that I really shouldn't, from a business perspective, be keeping. I should be selling them, but I just, to me,
You
it's not
can't.
right to do that. Like I feel like
And
it's
then
like,
you have the teachers, man, that teach you, your mentors, like yourself. Like you had those gifts of those animals where they give you a special like retic or they give you a berm. Like you have to keep it because then you feel guilty. Like this is the only animal that I have, and then this person passes. Like this is the only type of attachment that I have to him. That's how I feel like with my teacher. Like he gave me an Asian water monitor, and I think he gets a lot of his animals from Kevin McCurley. But that was like that was my entrance into his world. Like he introduced me into his little ecosystem. He's type of a raw eater where he has his own fish pond where he eats out of his pond. He has his chickens. It's just a cycle. And
yeah,
then he's just a naturalist. And that to me, where he brought me into his home and we were just talking shit about how we needed to breed or what he knew how to breed or the animals that he bred in the past, like all of that knowledge that he passed on to me, it's like so treasurable because it's like it's in within that animal too, like that animal that he gave me, it's attached in some way, it has some type of connection, and it's hard to let go of those animals, bro, because you develop some type of emotion.
yeah. Well, that's it. I look at them and I'm like, but I feel like it's not something I should just throw away. Like I wouldn't just go sell my dog because I wanted another one.
Yeah,
And that's where I said like reptiles are thought about differently than dogs or cats. But I just, for me, like I just can't sell it because it's not relevant anymore. Like I still have hypos, and now if I cannot give it the standard of care, so for instance, if something happened to me and I couldn't keep these reptiles, that is a different story. But to just
absolutely.
sell something because it's not relevant or it's not as profitable anymore, I'm kind of against that, and I have to stick to my principles, and that's part of it. And that's why you don't really see me selling breeders. Like the animal's here until it's not anymore. Uh, and just like people, people are like, oh, you keep buying these animals and they die, but just like people, like not every person is going to live to be 80, 90 years old. Like there's
Yeah,
some people that are going to die when they're infants. It's unfortunate. There's others that are going to be in their teens through just routine health. I mean, if we didn't have hospitals, we wouldn't be living as long as we do. And I feel the same way about reptiles. It's people will say like, oh, a reptile died at 8 years old. It should have died when it was 30. Now there's obviously things you can do to offset that. Like you probably, if it was under crap care for the first 8 years and it dies at 8 years, that's different. But there are animals that just die at 8 years old. I mean, it's just what happens. There's animals that never make it. I was speaking to a guy who actually just shot me an Instagram message. His animal, he bred it and gave birth, but it didn't give birth to everything. He ended up bringing it in for surgery because we were talking about it, and it had two uteruses. Like, could not have prevented it. That animal, if it bred anywhere in the wild or in captivity, would have died. Now he got a surgery for it, and the animal is doing okay. But at least last time I checked in, and but it had two uterus. Like what?
yeah,
Like there's genetic stuff that could be wrong with these animals, and it was
yeah.
not a crazy morph. I think it was a hypo. It's not like it was like this 10 gene animal. It's just what happens.
It's just nature, man. Like they find a way. I think that nature is designed in a way where it's like kind of like Jurassic Park, bro. Like there's constant evolution that we're not tracking, and I think that they are tracking, but that's more of the superstitious mindset of mine, where I'm like thinking about what the government controls. But it's like I think like if we really study the husbandry like you are, man, like you realize their habits, you replicate that in nature or however it's happening, there's a lot of things that you figure out like these are all just lies that we tell ourselves. It's there's a higher process of evolution that we might be stopping, or certain things like my mentor here, Dan, with boas, he was telling me that he thinks that certain apex predators have a local sense where they don't produce certain animals, or certain monitors don't produce certain seasons, because they somehow have a sense that there's too many apex predators in the area, or that certain species is overpopulating that area. So nature won't allow reproduction in some sense. And there has been some studies that are done, in ongoing studies, but it's very interesting, I think.
Yeah, I can I can get on board with that. I mean, I never thought about it in that sense. I know like parthenogenesis itself is pretty interesting. That I've heard concepts of like water monitors. They'd swim to an island and there'll be nobody to mate with, so they'll give birth to male babies so they can breed back to the mother animal. Um, which is kind of cool. I don't know how true it is, but it sounds like an evolution component of things.
Yeah, man, that's very interesting to me. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And touching base on animals, brother, the question of the day, it's the Spirit Animal Podcast. Who do you resemble yourself as an animal? Like who do you see in nature and like it's oh shit, that's Jason.
Donkey. No, I don't know. I don't want to be like a cliche and go at something. Tim, that's a good question. I don't know. Everything that's coming to mind is like, I don't want to say that. Can't be that.
You have to have it tattooed.
I mean, I do. I probably do. I mean, I don't know. I guess a snake, but I hate to say that too. Like
maybe the boa.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's no, it wouldn't be a snake, to be honest. It wouldn't be like, oh, that's Jason. I hate to say a snake because like the stigma of a snake is like, oh, you're a snake, but like, which it doesn't make any sense because snakes are not really like bad in any way. It's just like for some reason they got this word. It's I don't know. A gorilla.
A gorilla.
Yeah,
very, very, very upfront, very guerrilla. You think you're very receptive to a lot of things. You don't take any shit.
Yeah, I guess like I have no problem, and I stand up for myself. I stand my ground. I have no problem saying what needs to be said. I don't care if I'm going to hurt your feelings or not. At the same time, I feel like I know what needs to happen and to make other things happen. And if I screw something up, it's my fault. If I did something wrong, it's because it's an action that I did. So I feel like a gorilla, maybe something like that. Gorillas like they have that same sense. They can still care and love for things, but at the same time, they're not going to take shit. They're not going to back down. And maybe a gorilla.
Very intelligent too. Very intelligent as well. I think.
I like that. Very intelligent.
I'm not stroking you, bro. This is just the way I'm feeling about the animal.
I mean, I guess that would be a good one. I don't know. The ones that came to mind, the usual, the lions, the tigers. I'm like, nah, that's like cliche. But I'd say a gorilla. I don't know, gorilla can lion's ass in the right situation.
They can kick ass, man. I mean, look at Harambe. He just got killed for nothing.
Yeah, you're never the strongest thing out there, but there's always something stronger. But you still gotta kind of always put on that thing that keeps you moving and drives the pack and everything else. So I'd say that.
It's interesting how they move too. Gorillas have a certain pack movement where they're codependent. You could say they're dependent on each other, but they have some sense of independence where they show it and they display it to their young so that they can somehow have it as well. And I feel like that's how we should be more strict on ourselves, not just as one to our own siblings or our kids, but maybe to our own society. We should be more real about what we're saying.
I mean, the more I think about it, I'm like, I should have thought about that question more, but I'm with gorilla. I like gorillas. Gorillas are cool animals.
So this is the thing, brother. So when you think about, and this is why I asked this question first, because it reveals your true identity. So when I say, who do you think is your spirit animal? In reality, that's your totem animal, because you went to think your aspects, your personality, your traits. That's what you think. That's your spirit animal. But in reality, that is who your what they call your true nature is, where you come from, or that's your essence. So you find yourself more attracted to that animal, who I seem to define in myself, like you say, like it's a bit cliche. It's a food dog, but it's the guardian of the Buddhist temples or the imperial temples, and he's a spiritual guardian. He's a lion in their mythology, but he's also half dog. It's like he's half balance, and that's what balances Earth. And this is the male. So when I die, I have it in my will where the female will be tattooed on me because that's the ending of the mandala or the ending of the circle. And
That's
that's thank you, brother. That's like the essence of like the animal, you know, that represents me as a person. So I think like the gorilla, yeah, that's great, but I think that might be your totem animal. I'm not sure, you know, that's truly up to you or what perspective you have. But you have that sense of a lion, bro, where you stand your ground, you do you, you know, but you're still being fed by your community because they know you're there and you don't stand for the bullshit for nobody. You know, it's like you keep away from the drama. You just focus on yourself. You focus on the grind. You focus on educating us because that's really what we appreciate, brother. The knowledge that you've given out, and it's crazy because it's free. You know, a lot of the people that are just starting out and they figure out how to breed ball pythons, they don't want to share grades or what state they're from, how to lower temperatures, because they feel like that's something that's safeguarding them. When in reality, there's a lot to go around.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, and I tell people, like, drop me a comment, give me video topics. Like, if you want to hear something and it's not out there, it's not a video, drop it. Like, the only problem with YouTube, which is I struggle with, is you have to hit an algorithm. You have to hit what people want to see. And a lot of the questions and topics I get are super specific. So I try to weave them into something. But yeah, drop me a comment. I'm happy to try to make some videos, and if it can be one of those videos that is appealing to a larger audience, I will 1,000% make it. If not, I will maybe make some. I don't know. I got to start doing some shorts and stuff like that too. So maybe that's a good way to fit some of that stuff in.
Yeah, man. I think I need to work on my YouTube more. I'm releasing the first video for that vlog that we started up here on Monday or Tuesday and then Friday. So I was supposed to do the daily vlog, but honestly, man, it's like I find myself with no content. And like there's no lie to it, man. Like I it's a simplistic life, and sometimes there's just no events that go wrong, and it feels repetitive to other people. But to me, it's a new adventure every day. You know, it's like it's hard to portray the same enthusiasm or to put somebody in my shoes without you actually seeing my life. And I think like the problem is that I need a camera guy. Like the angles that I want, they're not there because I'm sticking it on the roof or I'm taping it to the door. Like I need somebody who has movement, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, if I had somebody shooting videos for me, it would be a chore as well. But I bet the videos would be a lot better instead of me just
Yeah.
standing there talking. But again, I like to think the content's there. That's really why I started the channel, is to get the information to people. It's not to get clicks and it's not to get, you know, a million views. If that happens, awesome. But the whole reason is to help people, to help educate people, to be a source of information. And if people want to learn, I like to think that's what the content's there for. Not necessarily to entertain, but more to learn. And if you're entertained in the process, amazing. I love that. But yeah, that's where I struggle, is finding that balance between entertainment and education. And really, the goal was to educate.
Yeah, man, and you establish that connection because you're allowing yourself to be open to the public. Like the business guy is still there. Like there's no public figure that's hiding behind the corporate office. Like this is Jason, and this is what you get. Like that's more legit than it can get, brother. Like there's a base connection with your customers, brother, and that's why you resemble to that same sell tactic. And I was going to ask this earlier, but I'm like, no, he explained it because he has his routine and he sells this way, and it's with the flow. I was going to ask you, like, do you go with the flow, or do you have any business tactics that you might want to share with the public that you keep to yourself?
I don't really have any business tactics. I guess the only business tactic I have is just be honest, be straightforward, and just treat everybody with respect. I mean, I feel like that's what I would like to think my customers would want to be treated like. You know, the golden rule is treat everybody how they want to be treated, and I like to think as long as you hit those are the types of people I would like to interact with. Is others that are like-minded, they enjoy the animals, they want to be treated with respect, they want to be, you know, they want the opportunity, if they ask for a picture, to see a picture. Like, what's so hard about that? Now, I know it gets frustrating. People make jokes and memes about that, but like, and I get it, because there will be people who will ask for a million pictures and then they'll be gone. But there's also a lot of good people out there that literally just want to see a picture. And like,
I love working with those people. I'm sorry, brother, to cut you off, but I love working with those people, man, because they they teach me more because I'm doing the research for them, because I like to read about it. Like, if even if it's not a species that I work with, like I've been selling a lot of dart frogs recently because I had some sales at the Sunday snake and sips that we do here in town. We take some snakes out to the clubs and we show them to people, and I make some sales there. But I get into species that I've never touched, and honestly, I love that circle because it's something that, like, I get to touch, but I honestly don't have to pour my entire week into to do it, and have to do it again and again and again. And I find myself attaching myself to certain species where, like, I can see myself doing this. Like, okay, I'm going to get into it regardless if it's selling or not. Like, it's something that's, I feel like I develop a real connection.
Yeah. No, and I like, honestly, I like the new keepers. I like the first time reptile keeper. I really enjoy helping them get into the hobby. I love the parents, like the father son, father daughter, or mother daughter teams where the mother or the father are buying the animal with their kid, and like, this is awesome. Like, I really enjoy that aspect. And for a while, that's why I've kind of almost steered away from the high end animals. I love the high end animals. I love the high end sale. It's great when you make a $3,000-$4,000 sale, but it's also really cool when you're helping the newer keepers get into the less expensive animals because they're passionate about it, because they're trying to start something with their son or their daughter. And I enjoy that whole component of things. That's how I really connected with reptiles when I was younger. Is it I feel like it brought my mother and my father kind of closer to me with that interaction. It was something we could, now they want nothing to do with reptiles, but it was something we did together in different aspects. And I guess I appreciate that when I see parents doing that for their kids, because I know what it did for me, and I think I enjoy that. So, but in terms of sales tactics, I don't have any. I'm just you get you see, you get what you see, and I just try to be honest and open. And if you give me a question, I'll do my best to answer it, or point you in the right direction. And I don't want to upsell anybody. I'd say people will tell you that that might be a fault. Is somebody will say, "Hey, I want this animal," and I could sell them something. I could easily sell people something, but I don't want to upsell somebody. I don't want to sell somebody something that they isn't right for them.
And I do that all the time. Don't get me wrong, bro. I got upsell a lot, and I don't feel bad about it, because at the end of the day, if this person is willing enough to purchase this animal for me for this amount, I know that they're going to put that care in. And to be honest, I'm going to be honest with you. Our reptile shops here in town, the prices are way above Morph Market. And sometimes you run into some animals where, yeah, they're good and decent, but everybody's trying to upsell. So if I'm going to give you my time of day and I'm not like yourself, brother. Like, if you want to talk to me and you reach out to me, I'm going to give you the time of day. Like, for example, the white snake that we had, I don't think I purchased it with you, did I? It was an ivory I sent you, and to my customer, he had an ivory with 3 abscesses on the neck, and you had said it might have been fat deposits. So when the snake shed out, the fat deposits went away. They haven't shown up or anything. And I told him, I was like, if you restrict the diet maybe for 15 days, maybe to just get him back on track, to see maybe if he has just a higher, retention of fat or something is going on. And I told him, go ahead and call the vet. Make sure to call the vet and take him to the vet, or I can take him or schedule him for you. And that's how far I'm willing to go, because that's the animal that I put in my hands. Like, I'm not going to just let him die.
Yeah. No, but no, upselling, I mean, is like, upselling is maybe not the right word, but if somebody comes looking for an albino from me, I'm not going to try to sell them a blood. Like, if they want a blood, I will sell them a blood. I will say, this is the animal. But I'm not, if they don't want that animal, I don't want to force it on them. I don't want to try to sneak in a sale. Somebody else will want that animal. And I feel like that's a level of trust and integrity that I have with people who have purchased from me. And I have a lot of repeat customers for that reason. Is I feel like when they come to me, they know that if I don't have what they are looking for, I'm just going to tell them I don't have it. I have these animals I could sell you, but if you don't like them, like, hey, go somewhere else. I want you to get the right animal. You're going to have this animal for a long time. It's important that you get what you want and not what I'm trying to sell you.
Exactly. And that's what we give. We give some certain, forms. Like, for example, the guy that I sold to that white snake, he asked me, what's the best snake for our size family? It's just my daughter and myself, and I want to have something that I can manage and something that I can hold every day and is tame or has some type of calm, demeanor. And I pointed them towards a Burmese because honestly, bro, like they're very underestimated, I think.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a ball python in a sense to me, but they have more of an inquisitive nature, I think.
I think Burmese can, and I made it in my video. I think Burmese can be excellent pets, whether you are a very experienced keeper or a brand new keeper. Uh, I think Burmese can, and I didn't. I mean, we went into the story about the albino Burmese python. I was afraid of it because the stuff I was reading and the stuff people were telling me, and and I wish I bought one sooner because once I actually had one, I realized that a lot of what I read and what I heard was incorrect, and that's why I think they can be good pets. It's really, are you prepared for what you're getting? And that's no
Absolutely.
different than a dog, a small dog versus a large dog. Are you prepared for what you're getting? You shouldn't get one over the other as long as you're prepared for it. You're prepared for it. Go get whatever you want. Don't get a cobra, though. That's maybe not very smart.
I have false water cobras, but I mean they're not venomous. They're just rear fang.
With a family, kids probably shouldn't be getting a spitting cobra. Like, it's not very smart. But if you're
Yeah,
prepared for it, I guess more power to you. Go for it.
like here, there's tons of Gila monsters and the beaded lizards. They're beautiful, man, and I enjoy them more in nature because when I go out on my walks or if I go hiking, I see them. They're everywhere, and
That's
it's
awesome.
like I don't have to keep them in a box. Like I can just go in my backyard and look at them, and they're just in their habitat.
I'm going to have to come visit you soon because that sounds pretty awesome.
You do, man. You do have to come down. We are planning something here soon, so I'd like to get you involved in that here, having something like a big breeder convention at a bar or something.
That would be awesome, especially at the bar. Let's all get, let's get hammered together and go look for Gila monsters in the desert.
Just make some mushroom, take some peyote, and we'll
Yeah,
have
that,
some fun.
count me in. But full disclosure, my computer is blinking low battery. I feel like it says I got 15 minutes. I got 15 minutes till it dies on me. But
Definitely, brother. Well, we're gonna go ahead and cut it here to this last question. Favorite animal that you keep?
it is probably a T positive boa constrictor. I have a lot of them, but that's the one that comes to mind. She's a T positive boa. Something about her. If anytime somebody asks me what's your favorite animal, that's the animal that comes to mind. So she has to be my favorite animal. Uh, she's just awesome. I've had her since 2010ish or so, and she's actually pregnant right now. And I have babies from her, and I have babies of her babies, and she's just an awesome animal. So that's definitely the one.
I don't have any T-Paws boas. I do have T-Neg retics. Do they retain the same type of color, or they darken as well, or they're different?
They're more of a, so it's commonly like a caramel, so more of a caramel color. They
Mm.
still have their pattern, and it's different than, this is a Berkline T positive, so different than like a VPI T positive. There's different lines of T positive with boa. This one, to me, she's just a beautiful animal. As babies, they don't look that great, but as they grow and their scales enlarge and their colors dull, they dull to like a lavender, purplish, pinkish hues, orangey colors, and she's just, T positive animals are like my favorite. Besides, I like T negative, but T positive I think is where it's at.
Yeah, there's my breeder here in town. I think he loves that VPI T-Paws or T-Neg, but
Yeah,
he's into a lot of that VPI line. Yeah, man. Well, I do want to thank you, brother, for tonight. It was a great talk. A lot of revelation between my own spirituality and what thoughts I had. Sometimes it does take the experienced guy to show the naive bullshitter to actually stay firm and continue on the journey.
well, we're all experienced in our own way, so let's, we'll as long as we stick together, we'll all be moving forward in the right path.
Absolutely, brother. Well, I do want to thank you, brother. It was a pleasure that you hopped on. I'll go ahead and talk to you here in a couple minutes. I'm going to go ahead and continue here with this episode as well, brother. It was a pleasure and much love.
Awesome, bro. Good. Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to doing it again.
Absolutely, brother. We'll bring the wives on.
Yes. All right, bro.
Thank you so much for joining as well. This was the conclusion of this episode. You guys have a wonderful night. Always much love.